You're listening to the Energy is Love podcast.
What are we talking about today on this podcast? This amazing podcast. By the way, I don't know if we talked about it on the actual podcast. We kind of missed it because we've been busy with so many other things. But
what's that?
7 years.
7 years.
7 years of the podcast, right?
That's awesome. Not the 7-year itch, the 7-year celebration.
So I can't, even now, I can't remember when the anniversary is. It's like the 23rd or the 25th of May or something like that.
We're not sticklers for dates sometimes, especially when we can't remember them.
Right.
Then we're like, it's cool.
I have such a hard time remembering dates.
Yeah.
It's like so hard. And I feel so bad.
Yeah.
Because there's really only how many kids do we have again? There's really only 5 dates that are super important to remember, right?
Yeah.
It's your birthdays.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, it takes all of my brain power to hold that content in my head and then be able to pull it up. And I've realized this recently, that the reason for that isn't because I don't love you guys or because I'm insensitive or because it's not important to me. It's just how my brain works.
Yeah.
Where it's all the neurodivergency and the ADD and whatever else acronym we want to put on top of it. I've got some CPTSD in there.
Right.
That definitely affects it, right? But my brain doesn't do very well when it comes to remembering things like that.
Right.
Now, if you want to know who starred in Red Dawn back in the 80s.
Right. And who directed it.
Yes.
All of
then
that.
I can definitely help you out with that information.
Your brain's superpower on that.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny what our brain will grab as this is information that you cannot purge. It is here. But the pertinent information that you want to retain, it's like, excuse me.
It's not going to hold on to it.
This, we are holding this, not the stuff. Nobody's asking you what you want to remember. This is what we're going to remember.
I have let go of trying to remember extended family birthdays, siblings, parents. I don't if it's not on Facebook coming up as a reminder, then sorry, you're not getting a birthday wish.
Oh my God. Should we talk about the Facebook birthday
reminder things? Probably not. Especially after you're
it's so.
But anyways, we had an anniversary for the podcast.
Yeah, we did.
That we celebrated. Did you celebrate it?
You should have.
Did you go out and get yourself a 7-year cake?
You can still send us a cupcake.
You're cute.
Thank you.
So on today's episode of the podcast, we are going to be discussing what it looks like to heal in a relationship, together. Right? Everybody has their own healing journey that they're on, even if you don't think you're on a healing journey. I think you're on a healing journey. We think you're on a healing journey. Wouldn't you say? What if somebody isn't healing? Or what if they're of the stance of I'm not on a healing journey.
I'm not.
I don't need to heal. That's stupid.
That's stupid. I'm here. I know what I'm doing. I'm getting through life right now. You're doing what you know how to do.
Okay. Well, anyways.
So I'm going to say, that's still a part of it.
Right?
Because
it's still a
path.
If
they get to the part where they're looking at reflecting back, this is a significant part of their journey. And this will mean a lot. And they'll see where they learned how to persevere and keep going. And so, it's you don't have to label it that. And maybe it doesn't feel like that, but it's going to be a part of your journey regardless because you're living it. So, you're on a healing journey.
So everybody is, us included. And today we're going to talk about what that looks like to do it in a relationship and to do it together. And to just kind of clarify a little bit more, because to give context to what we mean by a healing journey, or what does it mean to heal together in a relationship? What we mean is
taking your vitamins, your supplements, Dino DNA. I don't know. I'm joking. DNA. Okay, keep going. Drinking your apple cider vinegar.
Dino DNA. It's looking at all of your lived experience up until this point and how it is affecting your current life. It is exploring traumas, exploring repressed memories, exploring your shadow, exploring kind of why you are the way that you are, why you feel the way that you feel, why you think the way that you think, why your life is the way that it is. So it's kind of all of that that we're talking about. What does that actually look like in a real practical sense on a day-to-day basis, especially in the context of relationships? So a lot of what we're going to talk about today obviously is applicable to just like the individual person, right? You don't have to be in a committed long-term relationship to heal. Obviously, there's plenty of people doing this shit all by themselves. But we're going to kind of talk about it from the perspective of what our own individual healing looks like and how to support each other, as well as like what that has looked like together.
Yeah.
Because we have our healing that takes place simultaneously on top of the individual journey.
Right. And I think there's this like, and maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like there's this preconceived notion out there that when you're healing together, you're evolved, you're this complete conscious couple, you never fight, nothing's wrong, you just like really like always speak your feelings and emotions and understand where the person's coming from and all this perfect, because you're healing together. So, and that is just, in my opinion, couldn't be like more opposite than the truth.
More far from the truth.
Right? That's the word. I'm just trying to think of like sync. I'm trying to think of how to describe, like, it is when you're healing together, it's messy. It is, it's challenging and it's rough. And the difference is how you like go through it together. So you're going to mirror for each other. You're going to trigger each other. You're going to be evolving and growing and supporting each other and loving each other. And, maybe at times just like being like, what am I doing with this each other? And then like, this is like, I could not even imagine doing this with anybody but you. Like there's so many different things that come up, and healing together does not mean that there's no more problems. It means that you get to look at all the problems.
Yeah. So there's a big umbrella to kind of caveat this entire conversation. When you decide you want to heal or you're going to embark on your healing journey, whether it's a conscious choice or you just fucking ass and find yourself there, right? Like I always picture like falling and, your head is in the bush and your ass is poking up and you're like, oh, I'm here now. So I guess we got to figure it out.
I don't know why. I just saw like you sent one before about like bending over and like shooting sunbeams or something out your butt, or like getting sunbeams in your butt. Or like sun bleach in your butthole or something.
That area needs vitamin D.
Right? It really does. It's the most vitamin D deprived.
Yeah, it's the darkest part of your body and it needs some light. So on our healing journey. That's all I could see is just like I completely lost my train of thought. I was just like, everybody's grabbing their ankles and shooting it up to the sky. Enlighten me. Enlighten me. Okay.
How do you heal together? You need some aloe vera. I know. I'm so sorry. Okay. I can take that. I'm good. Let's go.
So a big umbrella to kind of caveat the conversation is essentially what, like and this comes from our teachers, our yoga teachers, Matt and Ash, right? The yoga couple. The concept is like, as soon as you decide, hey, I want to start working on stuff, universe is like, awesome. I'm going to show you everything that needs to be fucking healed. So it's not like, oh, I'm going to start healing things. And then it's just like this intellectual aspect of awareness. And you're like, oh, I read a book about my past and now I understand it. Right. The universe will suddenly reveal everything that needs to be healed in due time, of course. And like, that's what the healing process looks like, is you actually go through the shit that is required to go through in order to heal. Mm-hmm. So if you want a better version of your life to exist, the universe will show you all the things that are keeping you from that better version, meaning all the ways that you think about yourself, all the habits and behaviors that you have, both conscious and subconscious, all the things that are like your relationships that are maybe broken, damaged, and toxic that need to either be like purged from your life and or, not better off, but need to be healed in order to reach this glorious land that you're walking towards, this healed place. But that's the idea, is healing is not just the uncovering of all of that stuff, but that's what it looks like, is everything that is required to get to that place of being healed. And there isn't a place, right? It's not like you're suddenly healed and then you don't have anything else to work on, but Am I explaining it right?
I think so.
Like
I think
that,
so. I
you
think
have
we're
to
doing
go
good.
through the stuff that is keeping you from the life that you want to
Yeah.
live in order to get the life
You can't
that you
just
want to live.
bypass it.
Yeah.
It's not that what that TikTok trend or whatever. It's like, now can we skip to the good part? And all of a sudden, boom, you're on the beach, you're healed, everything's perfect, everything's fine. I mean, you can go ahead and like bop that camera all you want, but you have to go through the shit.
Yeah.
And that sounds like really dire. Like,
it is.
You're like, well, why would I do that? Like, that sounds like bullshit. That sounds like a scam. Yeah, you're going to send me money and I send you money back, but I get the bigger portion. Sure.
If you send me a gift card
right.
for $99,
right.
I will send you a cashier's check from the Prince of Sultan.
So, but the thing is, like, the universe has you when you're ready to do it, and you're supported through it. So it's not that it's easy, it's that you're able. And but I don't know how to really describe it, because like when you look at everything all at once, it's too much.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't go through it all at once, even if you're going through a lot. And it may not seem for a while that you've made any progress, because you're always looking forward.
Yeah.
Instead of like taking that pause and looking to see how far you've actually come. So you're like, oh, here's something else that I got to heal. Here's something else. Oh, okay, I didn't look at this. Now I see this. And it just feels like there's this never ending list of shit that you've got to get through. And why are you spending your life and your energy like going through all this shit? And then you turn back and you look and you see everything that you have like worked your way through, and how you're showing up in situations differently now. You're showing up for people that matter to you differently. You're showing up for yourself differently. You catch yourself being kind to yourself instead of destroying yourself. It's these little moments where you start to see all of the good consequences, the benefits from all of the work that you've done. And it's totally normal to be like, I need a break. I'm not going to heal for a minute. I want to kick back and Netflix and chill with some snacks. And that's the only thing I want to do, or whatever, your version of disconnect is. Maybe you download Bejeweled again and you're gone for a week, whatever, you do what you do. Those breaks are healthy so you can integrate, and we won't spin off on that too much, but yeah, it's super hard. It's super worth it. And like, don't get lost in the fact that all of the shiny posts and all the things that this is what healed looks like. That's what a portion of it on a good day might look like. Those are blips. Those happen. It's like everything is that temporary flow where everything isn't always bad. Everything isn't always good. It just doesn't work that way.
So rather than like, this is what healed looks like, this is what healing looks like.
In moments.
Right. Sometimes it looks like you and I have healed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're able to have not just a fuller, better relationship with each other, but also with ourselves, with our kids, with other people. Like all of those kind of things have come forth from all the healing that we've done, but we're still healing. Like, we're still in the process of it.
Right.
So it eventually takes on a different, like it suddenly becomes like, this is where I'm at with it today, where it's not like I'm working on healing. This just is life.
Right.
Like, this is the reality of what life is.
It shifts somewhere along the way.
Mm-hmm. Where I'm not getting to a destination anymore of like, man, as soon as I can uncover all my past traumas and then heal them, life is going to be so much easier. Yeah. This is just life now.
Yeah.
It's just, this is how we live.
Oh.
So,
and sometimes it sucks. And sometimes it's great.
In some ways, like, I know that our healing journeys are individual ones, right? Based off of our previous experiences in our lives and relationships and everything like that. Started a long time ago.
Yeah.
However, I think a big catalyst took place for both of us when we met.
Yes.
Like, there's an easy way to kind of quantify it, especially for the sake of a podcast episode, that when we met 10 plus years ago, right? That's when everything... Don't get mad that I can't remember dates.
Oh, no. I'm not mad. I just think it's funny. It's like the last 5 years, it's been 10 years or so. Like, and that's your happy.
Is it 11?
It's
have we been
like
together 30 years?
I think it's like 12. Wait, hold on. Yeah.
15.
It's like 12.
12?
It's
when
like
we met?
12. I think, yes.
We met in 2011.
Do you know what's funny? It's like we always do the math or try to, right? Yeah. And it's never that far off. So what kind of time loop weirdo thing is that? It's like, it's not 10 years yet. It's 10. I don't know. I just feel like you've been saying 10 years, the entire relationship. Ever since we started having some communication, it's been 10 years.
A few more years, it'll be 20 years.
Right? And then that'll be the staple for the next.
We've been together for 46 years. Anyhow, a big catalyst moment was when we met, and then
about 10 years ago,
all sorts of stuff started happening, right?
Right.
And if we look back now, we can see all of the things that we had to go through, quote unquote, to heal. It's like we talked about earlier, where the universe is like, cool, you want to start healing? Here's all the shit you're going to have to go through. You're going to have to go through, like, what did we have to go through? That's what I think would be beneficial to talk about to some extent. You don't want to go through all of that?
Well, I'm just sitting here thinking, right? Because this has been coming up in my space a lot lately.
Mm-hmm.
So it's down here.
You're okay.
Somewhere. I don't actually know where it is.
We're getting feedback from the universe coming through.
It was like I started doing prep work for the change. And that happened a couple of years before we met. I started doing this, like, getting ready to be able to embrace the catalyst, getting ready to, like, it's like I was like, oh my gosh. So, you know, when you're going to get in the shower, right? You're going to get in the shower. Excuse me, I'm going to burp online because that's how it goes. Energy is moving. Like, you grab your shit, you grab your clothes, you grab, you know, whatever.
Yeah, towels,
or not. Maybe you
washcloth.
walk around. You just make sure you have your stuff, like a little bit. But I don't know why I'm so activated right now. It's just because that awareness of, like, I started the process knowing where I was going to, like, to some degree, right? And then you entered the scene,
stage left,
and everything just went. This is like where it started. This was where I opted in. It's where the healing began. It's where I opted in for the healing. It's where everything just, like, shifted. I don't know how that was for you, but, like, I could have opted out.
Yeah.
And I try to a little bit, you know. But I don't know. I feel like I was deceiving myself, really, thinking I could opt out, because it feels like I had opted in way before, like, you knew I opted in. You know, maybe before my conscious self knew. But under that, like, I can think of all the ways that I knew where this was going. So, yeah. When you and I got together is when we met, when everything just shifted in the most beautiful way, right?
Yeah.
In one perspective. And in another perspective, in the most chaotic way.
Yeah, but that's what we're talking about, is the chaotic way that it shifted is really what was required for us to heal. So that chaos,
absolutely necessary.
Yeah, that
from where we were.
The chaos that like, because we talk about this a lot, where you know, it was kind of like, cool, we got together, we met, and then especially when we actually got married, right? Like, when it was like the agreement now suddenly where we're combining together energies.
Some of us had nervous breakdowns.
But all of the chaos that ensued is really this other, like, the other side of the coin is that's what was required for healing to take place.
And you have people that'll say, well, that's not necessary. There's an easier way. You could have done it an easier way. We're not negating that. Obviously, there were easier ways. Neither of us had the tools to do that. That's what we needed. That's how we got through it.
But see, I don't think there are easier ways. For us.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, could we have done things healthier? If you look back and you think of all the healthier choices that we could have made to get us to where we are, healthier choices now.
There's no way we could have done that.
That's my point, is that we couldn't. Like, are there things? Yes. But so much shame gets put out and projected of, you didn't do it this way. You didn't do it this way. You may have got here, but you, even in your healing, you get, like, shamed either by yourself or by society in a way you didn't do it right. This is how you're supposed to do it. And so even in that, it's like stifling and coming back, and just kind of like want to blow that out of the water a little bit and be like, these are the tools. If you could have done it differently, you would have.
Yeah.
Like, that's another thing, you know, if you could have, you would have. Just because there are other ways doesn't mean that you can see them and that that was an option to you. And even if you have the know-how and the know-betters, doesn't mean that you were still able to access the ability to. So for us, from what I can see looking back, even though I have all these other, you know, ways that I can see it now from the healing that has happened, but at that time, there is no other way that would have happened for me. I couldn't access beyond that chaos that was ensued in that for. And I see it as beautiful. Like, you can definitely pick it apart and look at all the shit. And sometimes you have to, right? But it was absolutely beautiful. Even in the worst moments, the absolute worst moments, I can see the beauty in it and I can see the healing in it. I can't always access that and I still get triggered. But when I'm not there and just like seeing that, it's
the
that
hindsight to
the
be able
hindsight
to see that.
and like looking back, I can see it.
Mm-hmm.
And so
so like all the chaos that ensued when we got together, all the stuff that came forth for us to heal, it's only now and truthfully within the last few years where we've actually been able to kind of look back and see it for the beauty that it is, right? Where it led us down the path of healing to get to the point where we're at today.
Right.
And so that's the whole concept and idea that if you ask for it, like, be careful what you ask for isn't like, it's not an omen of like, be careful what you ask for.
It's like an opt-in.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just saying,
are you ready for this?
Hey, if you're ready for it and you ask for it, the universe will provide.
Yeah.
It will give you what you need to heal.
Right.
And what that means is it's not going to give you like, you know, the get out of jail free card or the magic pill where it just fixes your trauma. Right. Like, what it gives you is the opportunity to go through what it will take in order to get to the other side.
Yeah.
So it will give you the capacity to go through those experiences that you need to go through in order to heal. Mm-hmm. So like a big one for us, for both of us, was we had to end careers that we both had started and that we thought were like the shit, that those were our careers. Those were our identities. Those were the things that, right.
It was my lifeline. It's what was saving me and the kids. Like, that was like I poured everything into that.
Yeah, I did too. It was something that, you know, I had wrapped myself up in as a way to completely feel protected and safe in a sense. And it was my identity. And then the universe is like, we're going to heal that part of you that thinks that's your identity. Right. That thinks that's who you are.
That thinks that's your only way to survive and keep your family afloat.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just going to go ahead and take that out from underneath you, not in a mean, vindictive, hurtful way, but in a loving, supportive way of like, hey, you actually don't need that.
Yeah.
That's actually holding you back, right? So that was a big thing that took place for us, where the universe took that away from us or provided us the opportunity.
The universe gave us another path. They closed that door and opened another.
Right. Close the door and open a window.
Here you go. It's a far drop, but you'll be all right. You just got to jump, baby.
And that was super scary. That was
super
really hard.
Scary.
And what else? What are some other things that you can think of?
Oh my goodness.
There's so many.
Yeah. Where we, like houses, family dynamics, like everything that, like, for me, everything that changed just like what family meant and what abilities were there and just how life was going to look. Learning how to, like, a big one for me was continuing to jump, to take those like big leaps, to saying, like, doing things that weren't done, that weren't modeled to me. And not only weren't modeled, but were criticized and like shunned and reprimanded in all the ways that you are wrong if you do this. And to be like, actually, this is the healthiest choice and I'm going to do this. And this is the scariest, hardest thing. And that keeps happening. And part of me is like, Matt, universe, I'm tired. I don't know if I have any more of those big leaps. Can we just, and the universe is like, I think you do. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, because it's continually giving us what we need to heal.
And maybe there's been enough big leaps. Maybe there's no more massive, but I can already feel that inside. Something else is coming, but I don't know when, you know. Yeah, at least they're like spread out.
They're not big leaps.
Okay, perspective. Life. So for me, they're big leaps. And I take a lot of pride in them, because for me to do those things, and whether jumping with you or without you, however, but for me to be able to do those things were massive. So like, I actually am a little kind of hurt that you said they're not big leaps, because I felt like that really minimized a grand accomplishment for me that was so hard that felt like it was going to kill me, and I managed to do that. You're like, yeah, it's not big leaps, it's just a life. I'm like, oh,
it's like you said though, perception, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not minimizing your perception or your experience. It was more me just expressing mine. But yeah, I wasn't saying that yours is wrong.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yeah, that was kind of like your perception on my experience, though, and I was sharing my experience.
We'll continue to share it.
Well, that was like it. Just like, for me, there were massive big leaps, and that's what it's been. And those are a really big deal for me. And I'm really proud of myself.
Yeah. I'm proud of you as well.
Well, thank you.
I think they are big, massive leaps.
I appreciate you.
And there's probably a part of my perception that minimizes them in order to do them.
Yeah.
Because if I think about how big they actually are, then I won't do them.
Okay, I see that.
So there's probably a big part of me that's like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's just life.
Right.
Right. It doesn't matter what life throws at you. You just got to do it. It's not a big deal. And that's probably how I make the big things small, so then I can actually do them.
Oh, I see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've mentioned that. You've mentioned that before. It's like, that whole Superman scene, it's too big. It's too big. We'll make it small.
Mm-hmm.
And like before, I've like went to hype you up on something and you're like, don't make it too big. Like you've had that, Yeah. So I hear that. That makes total sense.
Yeah. If I think about things too much, I mean, there's so many things. I don't know where we're at right now in this conversation.
We're talking about healing together. This is what it looks like. We're healing together in this moment.
Yeah. So the universe will give you opportunity to heal. We had plenty of it over the course of the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then on an individual basis, like I think about all the things, because I had like every unhealthy coping mechanism you can list over the course of my life. Everyone. List a coping mechanism that people use, and I have it. Right? Addiction. Addiction is pretty much addiction is the coping mechanism.
All the things you were addicted to.
Yeah.
You're like, all of them. Addiction. No, that summed it up right there.
That pretty much summed it all. But every form of addiction, right, in some capacity. The that avoidance, so I'm trying to think, like the disconnect, the anger.
Yeah.
What else? Like there's so many things, right? Like if I'm going to heal anger, what's going to happen? A bunch of shit that makes me angry.
Right.
Right. And it still happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm still in the process of not healing anger, but learning how to process and feel anger in a quote unquote healthy way, which means the universe continually is like, cool, you're doing really good. Here's another opportunity. Here's another opportunity. Here's another opportunity.
Egg explode in the microwave.
And then everything gets to be an ongoing practice,
right?
As you peel back the layers. So for me, like I think about healing addictions and healing the dependency upon something else, whether it's a substance, whether it's a behavior, whether it's a disassociation, right? The dependence upon those things as a way to avoid dealing with life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what addiction is to some extent, right? And I think about like alcohol, for example, where it's nothing that neither of us have ever really overly struggled with. Like, I don't think either of us would necessarily classify ourselves or even be labeled or classified by some sort of like professional person as alcoholics. And we both have had periods of time where we have used alcohol. And I think I have done that way more than you have. Like there were plenty of time periods during that year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, maybe 4 years. I don't know how long it was. A few years after getting fired, where alcohol was a major thing that I was using to cope and manage through the experience, right?
And then it also got you through the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it? Did we drink a lot during 2020?
Yes.
What were we drinking then?
Michelob.
Or was that our White Claw phase?
And our White Claws.
During 2020?
Just go back and watch the podcast and see what we had on the table.
You just fucking drink all the time on this podcast.
Right.
And like there's some extent where eventually you have to face the realities of what that thing is doing, right? The disconnect and the disassociation and the coping mechanism associated with all of those things. Same thing with like marijuana. Same thing with smoking. Smoking was a really big one for both of us, right?
I still like, that's the only one that I'm like, oh,
If
over,
only,
that I
right?
still have like a struggle with. I'll never pick it up again as far as I can, like my goal is. Like, or in this phase, like I don't know that I'll never take that first cigarette again, but I have full awareness that if I ever take that first cigarette again, it's probably going to be like the last time that I start. You know, I don't know that I'll have it in me to quit again. I might. So like having that awareness is like really helping me. Like it is not worth just that one cigarette, because it will never be one cigarette for me. For me. I'm not saying that's how it goes for anybody else, but for me, I can't, like, there's no point lying to myself and be like, you can just have one.
So if we use smoking from the lens of like the universe saying, hey, I'm going to give you the opportunity to heal that.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Like, do you know what I mean?
No. I'm trying.
So then,
explain.
Because we smoked a ton.
Yeah.
Like we smoked all the smokes.
Yeah.
And
This last round when we restarted, because we had quit too.
did we?
Yeah. So like when we got together, I wasn't smoking and you were. And then I joined you. And then we quit. You quit and I quit like 2 weeks later. I was doing my best. It was hard, but I finally did it for you. And then we started again. And then I quit and you quit like a few days later, like because that was like when I got back is when you joined me on that. And then we haven't smoked since. And I think it was 2018. Was it 19? It was 18, 19. I think it was 2018.
Again, right? Don't ask Craig for dates.
And then, but we haven't, but we started
10 years ago.
We started like, I think it was 2016.
It's 10 years ago.
I don't know. Anyways,
10 years ago.
15, 16. We started again and we were like
doubling down.
It was like, we were hardcore. We could
smoke with the best of them.
We couldn't smoke with the best of them. We were the best of them.
Yeah.
People couldn't keep up with us. It was terrible. Terrible. I cannot even imagine how bad, like, we were terrible. It was so bad.
What do you think? Because I think about this from the perspective of what we're talking about, right? Where the universe, and I mean, it doesn't, I keep quantifying everything as the universe just because that's our belief system. But the truth of it is, it's like there's a part of us that what was happening during our life that we needed smoking in order to survive and get through.
I didn't mean to make that sound. I'm sorry.
But then also,
oh my gosh, that was weird.
Because think of it this way, like, well, how did we manage to quit smoking if we were smoking that much? I think what happened was we were also healing during that time period.
We were.
And so the more healing took place, sometimes the smoking definitely became a crutch to survive that was no longer needed because we had developed enough skill set for dealing with what was actually happening that like the balance started to shift. Where did we still want to smoke? Abso-fucking-lutely, we did and do still sometimes, most of the time. Maybe yesterday when I was walking through Walmart's parking lot and saw some old man smoking in his car, I'm like, man, I just want to go hang out with that guy.
Right. I'm just going to take a drag, just one drag.
But the balance shifted to where what we were using smoking for, meaning the disassociation from the realities of what we were going through and experiencing, we developed enough of our own ability to manage those things without smoking.
We started to not want it in our lives anymore.
So the things that all the negative side effects of it, because people are like, it's so terrible for it. And it is.
It is.
So terrible for you.
Yeah.
But the reason why, at least for us, and this might resonate with people because it's not just with smoking, it's with everything else, right? The negative side effects that you're using the substance or whatever it is, right? Because it's not just chemical dependency, but the negative side effects that eliminates is too much for you. So Smoking is terrible for all the many reasons why we know it is. And we were
like
okay.
It kills you.
We were okay dealing with those side effects because the other things were scarier.
Yeah. They were just too much to handle at that time.
The other stuff that we were using as the disassociation or to disassociate from were too great. All the emotional stress, all of the chaos that it felt like we were in, all the our inability to actually show up in life, all of these things that were taking place in our life were too much. So they outweighed the weight of what the health, not benefits, the health detriments are and or were. And so as that scale shifted, now suddenly it became more important to, okay, this is actually really killing us. This is really detrimental to our health. And we actually have the ability to kind of deal with these other things. Because we started truthfully too, like a big part of what we started doing was dealing with our shit while we were smoking.
While we were smoking. Yeah, the smoking, another thing that it did too is like it gave us mandatory breaks. Breaks from the stressors, breaks from like what was going on. And it gave us secluded time to work on our shit.
Yeah.
Because we didn't smoke in the house. We didn't smoke around the kids. So we had to remove ourselves. And so many times when things would get tense, you go out and smoke. And so we were in turmoil and chaos, absolute shitstorm. And so having like that thing that was like pulling us out and giving us mandatory breaks and mandatory moments of where we were like working together or working apart, that was like basically putting a field around us, like shutting things up so we had the opportunity to work. And that, like, that's terrible, but I can see how that was a beneficial thing. I do not say like that is not a condoning for smoking. Like, don't do it. It's hard to quit. It kills you. It might get you through the moment, but then you might have a lifelong thing of, it might get you in the end. So definitely don't be like, oh, I need a break. I'm going to take up smoking. But smoking is not allowed in places. And there's like something of where they like smoking is like you get smoke breaks. Like that's a part of there's somehow how they manage that. I mean, they don't care if you have lunch, but smoke breaks, you go ahead and you take your smoke break. So you just have these like mandatory breaks. And then we hit that shift of we're in like, yeah, this is hurting us.
Yeah.
This is hurting us bad. Not only is it hurting us, but we're spending a fuck ton of money on garbage. And like we need to spend it on other things like groceries.
Yeah. We bought groceries.
Of course we bought groceries.
Were still buying groceries. People.
But we were like, we spent a lot of money on cigarettes.
Yeah.
A lot of money.
So back to
cigarette therapist.
It is. It was definitely a very good therapist. Back to this whole thing of like, how do you heal together? This is what it looks like.
Not smoking. Just like that was a part of our healing together. Not go buy a pack of smokes and heal together. Do not do it.
But there's a level of commitment that has to take place. And I think the first part of it is the commitment to yourself.
Yes.
That you're going to start going through whatever it is, right? Because it's the same thing where if you're wondering like, what do I need to actually look at? What do I need to actually work on? All you have to do is look at what is happening in your life. Because this is a weird thing I'm trying to articulate. Because I feel like this happened for us and I didn't have awareness of it at the time. But looking back, I can totally see it, right? Where it's not like we consciously met, shook hands, cool, let's start our healing journeys together now. It all just happens. And along the way, you're like, what am I even fucking working on? Or where do I even start? Like there comes a point where you're like, my life is in chaos and I want it to change. Where do I start? You don't have to look for the place to start. You don't have to go and find like what form of therapy or what part of my life do I need to reflect on? All you have to do is look at what is happening in your life. Like what is the chaos? And that's where you start. If you have a shitty marriage or a relationship that's not working for you, that's where you start. If you are addicted to cigarettes and you want to quit smoking, that's where you start. Like all of these things that are happening in your life, that is the work that you have to go through in order to heal. So you don't have to look externally and find, oh, maybe EMDR therapy. Maybe I need to go do ayahuasca. Maybe, if I just up my weed intake and take it seriously now instead of just using it recreationally, then that's going to help me in healing. Whatever it is, you just have to look at what's falling apart and where your stress is and where your chaos is. And that's what you go towards. It's literally like you had this thing a few episodes back, and I don't remember how many, right? It was probably 10 years ago where you said this thing. The idea that like the buffalo goes towards the storm and the cow runs from the storm. Like if you want to heal, you got to go into the storm of what's happening in your life, and you don't have to look further than what is actually happening. So you have to just kind of trust that that's what the process is, and that trust along the way you're going to heal by facing all of the things that you don't want to face.
Yeah. This is all, it's also like too hard to face by like yourself. You can face it by yourself. Absolutely. Because chances are you've been facing all the shit by yourself anyways. But
you can't though.
You
I
can't.
don't. Yeah. I mean, it's like you have to go together. You have to have help.
Yeah. There's help out there. And it's like therapy, like EMDR, which you mentioned, which is great. It's not accessible to everybody. Like it's like we're proponents of therapy. We're proponents of getting a therapist. We're proponents of getting that with full awareness that it's really bullshit, that it's not accessible to everybody. And that if it is accessible to you, it doesn't mean that it's a good therapist. It doesn't mean that it's somebody who's actually able to help you where you're at. So it's not just like, oh, you just need to go get help. When it's like, I can't afford help. And the whatever state or county that's offering, like it's not help whatsoever. So your go get help is not applicable to me. So what's my options then? So it's not just that. There's other, like there's people around you. There's online. There's so many things online. And it doesn't even mean like getting an online therapist or an online coach or an online, there's just like, there's support groups. There's pages that you can look up that's talking about what you're feeling to where you can start to feel seen. There's little ways where you can like connect in comments. There's, social media can be used for like terrible and propaganda and spreading hate and all that. But there's also so much love that gets to happen there. And you get to connect with people who understand what you're experiencing, who have been there, because you're not alone, but you feel completely alone. So getting help is just reaching out and being willing to start small, start wherever you are, but being willing to allow somebody to see you or allow yourself to see other people who are like you, who are like having the wounds. You're like, that, me too. When you're looking at things and saying, me too, like I resonate with that. I feel that. Sometimes that's just where it starts. And that's enough to realize, I didn't know anybody else felt like this. I didn't know anybody else was experiencing this. I didn't know that somebody out there might actually understand me and what I'm going through. And if therapy is accessible to you, go get
it. And so in the context of a relationship too, right? Where we are helping each other heal by literally just supporting one another. Mm-hmm. So that's the big thing, is if you're going through this experience, and sometimes it's one person that gets started and then the other person kind of finds themselves on their own path and their own journey. But the whole idea is that all you have to do to help that person or help your partner heal is just love them through the process. So there isn't much else that you have to do, even though there's going to feel like so much more that you have to do, both like literal at sometimes, as well as like you're going to constantly, like I'm constantly trying to think about how to help you. And the truth of it is I can just set that down. I don't have to worry about any of those things, right? All I have to do is love you and support you through your process and through your journey, because it's going to look vastly different. The two healing journeys that are taking place simultaneously aren't going to look the same from the lens that you're looking at them through, right? They're going to look very, very different. So however your partner is choosing to do their healing journey or to do their healing, you just have to love them through it. That's all. That's it. There doesn't need to be anything else. You just have to love them through it. You have to accept them as they are and accept that whatever they're going through is on their path for a reason, and that's their experience. And they need to go through that experience in order to heal and get to the other side of it. And all they need from you is the loving reassurance and support that they're okay and that they have like your ongoing love and support as they go through that process. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
That's it.
Yeah. That being able to be like reassured, but like coming to you and be like, I need reassurance. And just having that ability to where you're going to help with that. That's that whole like co-regulation thing that is so, so massive, is being able to support your other person instead of being like, no, this is you. This has nothing to do with me. This is your journey. You figure it out for yourself, which sometimes you get stuck in, right? Sometimes you're like, I don't know how to help you. So now I'm going to make it your fault and you're wrong for needing help. In reality, a lot of times it's just like, I'm just scared. I don't know what to do here. So I'm going to make you wrong for feeling these feelings because I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. So realizing you don't have to do anything. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to do anything, just like loving them.
Right.
Maybe they need you to sit next to them for a moment. And that doesn't mean you're dropping everything all the time. But when you can drop it, when you can drop in with your partner and sit next to them, sometimes just like having your shoulders next to each other, having like being that little bit of pressure to feel like somebody's by your side makes all the difference. Sometimes they have that verbiage and they're like, I need some co-regulation. I need some love. I need some support. Can you like hold me? That conversation, can you hold me? Can we connect? Can you like take some time? Doesn't come without trust. And so to be able to be vulnerable with your partner like that, like you have to work together to create a safe environment to where they do feel safe enough to ask you for support and help and love. And also, you get to like, this environment is also you being safe enough to say, I can't provide that for you right now. Like, I love you. I cannot provide that right now for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. Like, you also, just because you can't provide support in the moment doesn't mean you can't provide support at all.
Yeah.
So that communication is big, that really working back together or back and forth and co-regulating together creates so much trust to say, I need help. And I'm okay for needing help, and for you to say like, I can give this right now, or I can't give this right now. And that's okay. Maybe the other person is disappointed that you can't offer that help right now, but they're not hurt by it, you know, and maybe they are at the beginning. This takes practice and that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You have to like, I keep saying you get to step into that. You get to be willing to figure out what that looks like. And it is a messy dance. It is the drunks at the party, the receptions, trying to get out there and do the cha-cha. Like they do not know what they're doing. And then eventually you figure it out. And then you're dancing, right? That's how, you know, you just figure it out. You got to be willing to mess it up, because being willing to mess it up, like moving into healthy choices, trying to practice and gaining connection and gaining trust and gaining healing with each other is beautiful, and it's an option. Not being willing to mess it up, so you're not willing to try new things, is a pretty good way to guarantee you're going to mess it up. So just might as well like move towards the scary, towards the healing, move towards the, we're going to mess it up together.
So the big thing too, like, so that's how you support each other, that, you know, as they're going through their own individual healing. And then how do you do the healing work together? Like, how do you do the
individual work together? Is that what you're saying?
No. How do you do relationship healing together? Because there's like 3 journeys happening, right? There's the individual journeys of each person, mm-hmm. and then there's the combined journey of our relationship. Yeah. And that, I think, boils down to like, this is a massive oversimplification, but sometimes it just is like, how do we even begin, or where do we even begin, or what do we even do? Like, a literal reality of what that looks like is repair work. So you're repairing things that have been broken over the course of your relationship, which means you have to go back and go through those experiences. You have to go back and go through all the things that you have just kind of progressively avoided talking about or dealing with or facing. You have to go back and just fix all of those things. Meaning
bring your toolkit,
meaning go through those things. You have to go through the conversations, you have to go through the emotions, you have to go through all of the energy surrounding whatever that thing is, and you have to do it together. That's it. And I know that saying that's it makes it seem like, oh, okay, yeah, that's real fucking simple, we'll just go ahead and do that. It's not. It's so hard. And it's the same thing where it just takes copious amounts of practice and a combined commitment to just do it. And what I mean by that is like, okay, we have an agreement that no matter what this looks like, we're going to go through it. We're going to do it. And we're going to mess it up, and we're going to take breaks, and we're going to have periods of time where we just kind of fail and suck, and it's messy and it's hard, and we're just going to continually show up. So it's like agreeing that we're going to show up to this whole process of repairing all the things in our relationship that need to be repaired. And in doing so, it's this really cool snowball effect, because you start the process, right? And you just fell over and over and over again. And then at some point you have enough failing that has taken place that you start to feel less, or fell less. And then it gets slightly easier. And in the process of doing so, you aren't creating more and more issues that have to be fixed, because you're avoiding the same pitfalls that used to get you. So like now, you and I will create something every now and then that we're going to have to repair at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But truthfully, we aren't recreating or creating new things that we have to kind of fix and or repair through. We're able to just do it in the moment.
Right.
So we're able to repair in the moment rather than being like, okay, we can't do anything about this, or we aren't talking about this, or we're avoiding this,
right.
or we're just going to pretend like this never happened and then just move on. Right.
Right.
We're
all
repairing in the moment because we've done all of this work of actually sitting down, smoking cartons at a time, talking and feeling and expressing and connecting and communicating and listening in all the sloppiest ways imaginable over years to get to the point where we can repair now as it happens and avoid a lot of issues before they even need repairing.
Right. We haven't been creating catastrophic problems that can completely demolish a relationship.
Yeah. And the simultaneous healing of the individual as well as the partnership, they help in that process, right?
Yeah.
So all the coping mechanisms that you have individually, meaning like all the addictions that I talked about earlier, right? All of them, just all of them that I had. As those heal and fall away, then all the things that I was avoiding not healing or looking at suddenly can be healed and looked at. So not only does the addiction fade away, but also the continual problems, because the problem that you create in your own individual path or your own lack of ability then just creates a problem in the relationship.
Right.
So all these things can start to heal and take place simultaneously and feed off of each other in a positive way rather than in a negative way, which is oftentimes what it looks like in the beginning, where it's just this spiraling downward destructive act of self-destruction, actually. And then the relationship eventually implodes under the weight of all of that self-destruction.
That separation is important, that it's not the relationship that is causing the catastrophic wounds. It's the wounds of the person that are causing the catastrophic wounds to the relationship. That's all these things to go through. So the us not creating the same catastrophic wounds to the relationship is from all the internal self-healing that we've done in ourselves, all the internal work, the inner work, all that we've done on ourselves to stop creating these, which is giving our relationship the space, the time, the healing, the nurturing that it needs to heal the wounds. And then we still have to go back and look at the wounds that were caused by the individual self that hurt the relationship still, and like care and nurture and go through those.
And they can't happen, when I say they can't happen individually, you can heal by yourself. You don't necessarily need a relationship to quote unquote heal. But what can't happen is you can't heal the relationship if you aren't also working on yourself.
Yeah.
Like that just is foolhardy, and I think we tried to do that for a while.
We did. That was how you did it. You focused on the relationship.
Right.
Self was selfish. So I didn't really have that modeled, that self-work was important.
Yeah. So if you're wondering, why isn't our relationship getting better? We're doing all of this work. Maybe you're in counseling. Maybe you're going through all these different things and you're like, why isn't our relationship changing? It's probably because you're not working on yourself.
Yeah.
They have to happen at the same time. Otherwise, your issues that are happening because of your unhealed parts inside of you are just going to continually repeat the patterns in your relationship. So it's kind of, I don't say pointless to work on the relationship. It's very important to work on the relationship. But I think initially the importance needs to be placed on the journey of the self and healing the self, or at least starting that process, and then bringing awareness to like, cool, let's start doing the relationship as well. Let's start working on the relationship. And when they happen together and in conjunction with each other, that's like, they definitely, like, that's where stuff actually starts to change. That's where you can actually start healing. That's where your relationship actually starts to look better, with communication, with connection, with intimacy, with all of these things that we want, or that you want. That's how you get them. Is you have to start working on yourself, start working on your relationship, and just commit yourselves to that. It's like I said earlier, where it becomes life.
It does.
It becomes a way of life.
There's also a caveat to that, I have to say, of like, depending on the wounds of the relationship, depending on what was done, there is care that needs to go into the partner. Like, and it's not putting yourself aside, right? Because in order to fix the shit is looking at yourself. But if your actions have hurt the other person, then that needs nurturing, that needs care. And it's not just like, well, I can't look at you right now because I have to work on myself. And if that's where you're at though too, like, I'm not going to shame that, like, honor that. If you're like, I can't do this right now because I have to like take all of this energy and heal me because I can't live like this anymore. I can't do that anymore. Like, that is absolutely like viable, valuable, relatable, real, like, honor that. Because so many times we don't like call that out when we need to really focus on ourselves. Because it's like, of course I can give this to you. Of course I can give this to you. Of course I can give this to you. Even if I broke this, I might not be able to choose fixing this right now. It may be the thing that I want to fix the most, but I know in my soul, I've got to take some time for me and work on me. And then if you're willing, if you're still here, if you like, we can work on this. And maybe the partner will be there and maybe they won't. But sometimes you do have to, like, even in those moments, still honor where you're at. And if you're not at that space, and you can be like, I broke this. I'm showing up first to like, we're going to figure out why the dam broke, but we're going to, like, before all the water's out, we're going to do some patchwork.
Yeah.
And then I got to go figure out why the dam broke. So that's just like, it's this real deep willingness inside of yourself. It's like the courage to try something different than you've been doing. The courage to say, this isn't working, but I really want it to work. So let's do this together. Because you can't do it all by yourself. You can't fix a relationship all by yourself.
Yeah.
But you can't wait for the other person to fix it either.
Yeah.
And you can't wait for the other person to say, okay, now I'm ready to fix the relationship so we can work on it. Like, always waiting for the other person to start or opt in is kind of an opt out for you. It's an excuse. You can't do it all yourself, but you can't wait for somebody else to start before you start. I mean, you can, but, you know, it's going to be a pattern for you. You're just going to keep doing those cycles.
I mean, this is something that I think happens all too often, where you've got one person that starts their work, starts working on themselves and starts really down that path of inner work and healing. And then they want to start fixing the relationship because, like we said, they start to coincide with one another. As you heal yourself, you start to see more and more of like, man, this relationship's kind of fucked up.
This turns out, right? Pretty toxic.
Yeah. So you want to start fixing that as well. And then you've got a partner who hasn't started looking at any of their stuff and hasn't started working on any of their stuff. And they're like, what's wrong? Why am I, we don't need to fix our relationship. Everything's fine. Or they begrudgingly come to the table, quote unquote, to start working on the relationship. And nothing changes, nothing happens because they haven't started that journey to fix themselves and they haven't started to work on themselves.
Or you even look at them and start blaming them for everything. Well, you're not willing to do this.
Mm-hmm.
You're not willing to work on it. You're doing this wrong. If you were working on your stuff, this wouldn't be a problem. That's like also.
So if you're stuck in that place where you're like, man, our relationship isn't changing, they're not doing anything to work on themselves, what do I do? You just keep working on yourself.
Yeah.
That's all you can do, because forcing somebody to come and work on the relationship when they're not working on themselves is only going to repeat the patterns that you're trying to change. It's only going to repeat the problems that you're trying to fix. And they just don't have the capacity to even see those problems oftentimes until they've started to look and work on themselves. So it's just like a futile effort that will lead to only more destruction and or pain, which is fine sometimes, right? Sometimes you have to do that eventually to get to the spot where real change starts to take place. But I would say just keep doing your own work, and they will either eventually work and start doing stuff, or the relationship will end.
Yeah.
You'll eventually do enough healing on your own that you will no longer tolerate being in a relationship with somebody who isn't doing their work.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to face when the time comes. But the truth of it is there's not many the other option is you do your work and you get to a point where you recognize that that's the relationship that you're in, and then you just make peace with that.
Right.
And that's okay too.
Yeah. Maybe what works, like how, like these dynamics of their boundaries of only going to this level and your boundaries of going to this level, one's not higher or lower. They're just different places, actually works.
Yeah.
You respect where they are, they respect where you are, and it's just different.
Yeah.
And it works.
And there's a lot of people that are in those type of relationships, and that's fine. There's no judgment there. I mean, if that's where you get and that's what works for you, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that.
Not at all.
Not all relationships have to be some super integrated healing journey.
Right.
That's what we're all about, obviously.
Right.
But
that's what works for us.
Yeah.
That's what we choose.
That's what we're committed to. But if that's not for you, that's not for you. And that's cool. So I don't know. Let's wrap up. Is there anything else that you want to say on the topic of what it looks like to heal together? It's a shit show.
It's what is it, like that Jurassic Park thing? At first it's like, ooh and then it's running and screaming.
Yeah, it is so messy.
Yeah.
And it's so hard.
And it's so beautiful.
It is so beautiful.
The good times are like a different kind of good. It's not this chaos, this insane like toxic high, or this like bipolar of the relationship that is just like extreme lows and extreme highs, or only feeling like it's good when it's not shit. Like the good's actually good. The good is healthy. The good is connected. The good is like interdependent. The good is like empowering and, what's the other word? Empowering works. Like the good is good to the soul.
Yeah, it feeds the soul. As
opposed to like feeding because man, those fairy tale vibes, when you hit that high from the toxicity, when you get a like slingshot into the other part of the cycle, and you think
maybe that's what we should talk about next week is all of because you and I were basically just in fight or flight for the entirety of our relationship, right?
It was destruction or euphoria.
Yeah. And so all of the adrenaline that we were feeding off of in our relationship, which contributed to like so much stuff, right? And we were both just like totally addicted to that morphine drip of goodness inside of us that we were just chasing continually. Maybe we'll talk about that next week. I don't know. Who knows? We'll see.
At some point.
Yeah. So we're transitioning now to this beautiful part of the podcast that we started this year that we love, where we answer questions, and we're super excited because we have a new thing. You can email questions. You can send them to us via social if you just want to DM us. But you can also now call and leave us a voice message.
What?
So this is a brand new feature for this feature on the podcast, where you can call in and leave us your message, and we'll play it on the podcast, and we'll answer it on the podcast. we're just going to play your message and
Yeah.
be like, oh, that sucks. Let us know. Call back if you figure that one out. That's a
Right.
shit show of a fucking question.
And you can leave your name or not. You can be like anonymous. And
Yeah.
it's your voice still.
It's totally up to
like,
you.
But you can say your name or not. You get to say whatever you want on the
You can make
question.
up a name.
You can.
We'll never know.
You can be like, this is, yeah.
Yeah. So leave us a message and you can call right now. Like right now.
Right now. You can call right now.
You can call 423-521-0355.
Again.
That is 423-521-0355.
3 times.
The third time,
Do it again.
to call into the Energy is Love podcast and leave us your question, call 423-521-0355. And we'll answer it on the podcast at some point. So this week comes actually from social media. This is a question from Facebook, and it stems from a reel that we did. And the reel was about opting into conversations. So the whole idea is you have something that you want to address, something that you want to bring up. And rather than just jumping into the conversation, you're taking into consideration that your partner may be busy, might be distracted, they might be tired, hungry, whatever. Something might be going on in their life where they're not actually able to show up for the conversation. So rather than just starting that, you start off with, hey, I've got something I want to talk about. Do you opt in? Are you opting into this conversation in this moment? So you give your partner that extra little love and care to say, oh yeah, I'm ready. Let's go. And I can now bring all my awareness and focus to the relationship. Or, you know what, I'm really busy. Can we have this conversation in 10 minutes or later tonight or whatever the case may be? So that's what the context of the reel was about. And the question in regards to it is, what do you do if your partner never opts in? What if this is something that you've tried and your partner's like, yep, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. What do you do?
Me first? My throat like, raw. For starters, what I would do in that is see what energy you're coming through. Like, is it when you are agitated, upset, and you just got done with a fight, or a super busy day, things are coming up and you're bringing energy to it, like, and now we got to talk about this? Because a lot of times when we are activated and triggered by things is when our brain decides that now's the time to problem solve. We need to do it now. Right now's the time. Like, go talk to him. Bring it up right now. Now's the time. We need to fix this now. No. So if you're feeling that urgency that it needs to be right now, trying to like take that to the person and be like, are you opting in? They're going to be like, nope, sure I'm not. Don't like how that feels.
Yeah, if you're coming in hot.
Yeah. And you might not realize that you're coming in hot. It's like you're just might be just like completely scattered and like have been running such a busy day. So just like really getting curious about yourself. This isn't saying you're coming in wrong. This is just one thing to look at and be aware of. Like, how is your energy when you're coming into this conversation? And also like being mindful of where they're at. This isn't like dictating every little bit, and it's not emotionally monitoring where they're at. But if you hear them just get off of a tense phone call, or they just like, they're obviously in an agitated state, even if you're calm, now's not the time to be like, hey, do you opt in for this? Like, fuck no, I'm going crazy.
Yeah, when they walk in the door straight from work, you know, maybe it's not the best time to ask them for the opt-in.
Right? So like checking where you're at and like just being mindful of obvious implications that they might not be in that space is a good step. And now that you've already done that and they're not opting in, they're like, everything like, no, I'm not willing to talk about that. I'm not willing to talk about that. One of the things that I would try is saying, okay, can you let me know a time frame that you would be able to, when you're ready to, will you come to me and let me know when you're ready? Giving them, like, putting the ball in their court and saying, when you are ready, when you feel good about this, will you come to me for it? And that can change the energy of it. And if that's something that they still will not bring to you, and it's just a flat out, they're not going to opt in. You've done all these things, you like tried all the tricks and everything that you can do to try and come at it from the most healthiest, compassionate place for yourself and for them, and they just are not willing. Like, what is it that you need to talk about? Is it something that, like, if it's important to you and it needs to come up, then you might have to set a boundary. You might have to come to them and be like, I'm feeling. Like, I'm feeling really uncomfortable or scared or sad or upset or like whatever, like you are feeling, keeping eye language about this thing. And I really need us to be able to talk about it. And I understand that you are not feeling able to, that you do not want to. But for me, what I need in this is to be able to talk about this. And if we can't, then a boundary. It's just trying to really acknowledge their feelings and what they may be coming up with while setting your boundaries, not making anything their fault, but acknowledging you, eye language, how you are feeling. I keep saying you for eye language because I'm talking to you, but you have to use language that is directly referring to yourself. Acknowledge their feelings and then set the boundary. And the hardest part about setting a boundary, because you can set boundaries all day long, but then you got to hold the boundary. And so deciding, is that a boundary that you're willing to set and hold? And if so, set it. And then you go from there.
Yeah, I think the end of the day, all of the things that you just mentioned, right, are beautiful and should be practiced, implemented. Like you should take the steps, especially if it's a relationship that's important to you. And the assumption is that it is, right? And then there comes a certain point where if somebody else is just unwilling to show up and participate, whether it's with this type of communication or talking about hard things, like if they're just literally unwilling to do that, then there's nothing you can do to change that. You can't force somebody to do something that they don't want to do. Mm-hmm. And then it's facing the really, like, we're always trying to avoid the really hard truths sometimes. And the really hard truths is, what type of relationship do you want to be in? Do you want to be in a relationship with somebody that is unwilling to have conversations about hard things? Are they unwilling to show up and talk to you? Are they unwilling to listen? Are they unwilling to share? Do you want to be in a relationship with that type of person? And if the answer is no, then you have to look at the hard thing that maybe that means it's time for the relationship to end.
Yeah.
And nobody like that's the hard truth of it. It's like, well, I don't want this relationship to end, but I also don't want to be with somebody who isn't willing to listen or isn't willing to show up to the table and have a conversation. So those two things, you can hold both of those things that you don't want, but then you have to get very serious about what you do want.
Yeah.
And if you want a relationship with somebody that is willing to do that, then you have to look at this relationship ending, because you can't force the person to do it.
Yeah.
And all the little tricks and all the little things, and you've probably already tried a ton of them, and you've already probably done a bunch of like passive aggressive things in order to try to get them to communicate. All of these kind of different things that people try.
Maybe bribed them.
In order to bring the person to the table to have a conversation. Eventually, you have to face the hard truth that you can't force anybody to do it, and you have to decide whether or not you still want to be in that relationship. And that sucks. And that's hard.
That is.
But the longer it's not saying like, well, they're not opting in, so this means this relationship is over. No, I mean, this is like, it's different for everybody, but eventually you're going to get to that point. And the longer you prolong that, or the longer you think that it's just a matter of trying to come up with a new way, or something that you're doing different, or something that you need to do different, or something that you're doing wrong, all those kind of things that you like play over and over and over in your mind. The truth of it is, it's them. It's not you. It's them. And you can't change them. All you can do is keep doing what you need to do for yourself, especially if they're unwilling to show up. So that's the hard truth of it. And it sucks. And that's oftentimes what it boils down to.
You sparked something in me with where you're saying that a lot of times how that shows up is when the thing that you want to talk about is a hurt that the other person has caused. Mm-hmm. And that requires them to show up and be accountable for the hurt that they have caused. And then they're not willing to. And not being willing to show up in accountability for a hurt that they have caused is a big problem.
Yeah, that's something that isn't going to go away. Mm-mm. And you have to decide whether or not you're okay with having somebody be unaccountable for their actions over the course of the relationship. Because we all know what that feels like. We all know what that leads to. We all know how that, and you can't force somebody to take accountability. It has to be something that they come to on their own. And that's just the reality of it. It sucks. And we could sugarcoat it, and we could try to come up with ways to rephrase it. And it still wouldn't change the hard truth of it, where you're exactly right, where it's accountability, right? Because it is oftentimes that conversation that they're avoiding. They know that you're upset. They know that you're pissed off. They know that there's something that they've either done or they're not doing or they need to do. And they don't want to be accountable to that or for that, for whatever reason, right?
Yeah. Maybe they don't even want to acknowledge that they behaved that way themselves. Whatever reason, it doesn't matter at that point, because that's their journey to figure out what you're looking at as being in a healthy space for you. And that is a really unhealthy and potentially dangerous environment to be in.
Yeah. Thank you for the question. As always, we say, right, email them to us, send us DMs,
call us
via social,
leave us a voicemail. Let us hear your voice.
Yeah, we're excited for this new feature. So what's that number one more time, baby?
423-521-0355.
It's also in the show notes. So if you didn't get a chance to write it down or you can't remember it, we'll have it in the show notes. And obviously, if you go to the website, you can find it there as well.
Can we do, like, other than the area code, can we like try and make it a jingle to get in people's brains?
423-521-0355.
And it's like the song. What's like, I had to get the tune in my head, like 521-0355. The 867-5309.
We'll work on that.
521-0355. Don't forget the 423.
We'll work on
They're
that.
never going to remember it now. I just like, if they had it, I just completely erased it from their brains. Go to the show notes. Hey,
oh goodness.
Tell me what date we did this.
It's a great idea, right? I don't even know what year it is or how long we've been together. So
I almost wrote, when I was writing the date yesterday, like 6/7/2013.
Really?
13. I'm like, what happened June 7th, 2013, where my muscle memory like jumped 10 years. Maybe that's your 10-year thing. I don't know.
Find out next week on the episode that we are going to record. So thank you, everybody. We'll see you then.